Welcome to Adding Fuel to the Hire, a podcast for hiring managers and job seekers across all types of dealerships. With over 20 years collective recruitment experience, Rowan, Tony and Phil draw upon their knowledge to help you navigate through the recruitment and job hunt process. For more information, head to our website, addingfueltothehire.com.
All right, welcome to episode 4 of Adding Fuel to the Hire. It's Phil here. I've got Tony with me today.
Hello, Phil.
And we are going to talk about resumes and CVs, which is something that comes up quite a lot, which I didn't think it would getting into recruitment. I had this belief that everyone knew everything about resumes except for me.
Felt like you just missed something at school. But no, and I think you were just alluded to it then. It's something that I don't think many people get taught at school.
No.
I know from my perspective, I got probably 1 or 2 lessons on it very briefly.
Yeah.
It's just not a skill that you get taught that prepares you for
I
life.
didn't get any. Like no one ever taught me how to do a resume. When I first did one, I started at the first thing I ever did, and I was doing it with my mum. I think I was about 15, 16 probably, something like that. And she looked at it and she was like, no. You start with your most recent thing.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, what do you mean? Don't you want to see where I've come from and, go through the journey with me through my resume? And she's like, no, people are interested in what you've just done.
Yeah.
Where you're at right now.
And I think that's probably a really good place to start. And, spoiler alert, this is coming from 2 recruiters. It is true what you hear. Recruiters only look at, I don't know what the exact number is, but recruiters will only look at your resume for a very, very short period of time.
4 or 5 seconds.
4 or 5 seconds, which I know before I got into recruitment seemed like an absolute impossible number.
Yeah.
And I do remember the very first time I looked at a resume and I was training on my very first day in recruitment. And the manager that was training me at the time was showing me how to look for keywords and how to do it at that pace. And it took me 20, 30 seconds to even wrap my head around the concept of it and what he was looking at. And it just seemed impossible. Whereas now I'll open a resume, I can go through 20 applications almost instantly in the space of 10 minutes in the morning and just smash through them. And ultimately, this is where we want to be able to present our advice for is how to stand out in that situation. Because ultimately, if we're doing it, I can guarantee I've seen hundreds of recruiters work in different companies. They all do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you add to that the changing technology and now a lot of computers are starting to do it. Which is a whole other conversation.
That's right.
But just being able to stand out from the crowd is becoming very important.
Yeah. And it's nowhere near as difficult as everyone always thinks it is.
No.
It's really not that hard. We'll talk about it all in this episode, what people overdo or underdo, all that sort of stuff.
That's a great point, is that I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there which probably get driven from those companies that sell CVs or sell, we can do CV
resume
for you.
writing,
and then, they have to look like they've done something to get their money.
Correct.
And then suddenly you've got a 6 to 8 page resume, which is just, every intricate detail of your previous life.
That's right.
So
you've got pretty design on there and, it starts off with a cover letter of just your name and nothing else and just a nice design. And it goes on to the next page and it says, this is my resume. This certifies it's true. We're on to page 3 now, and now we're getting into it. So,
it doesn't have to be that complicated.
No.
And what we're hoping to do will, narrow that down and really give you some clear tips as to what to do. So I think a really good point to start on, and it's not really about the actual content of your resume, more so just an important tip in general is gaps in your resume. We understand, and I'm sure most employers understand that you can't be expected to be employed consistently for 20 years. Whether that's, you've had time off for kids, you were made redundant and the workforce was down at the time and you couldn't get into something straight away.
That's right.
Whatever it might be, that's great.
Yep.
But biggest tip I can give around that is don't lie about it. Don't fudge the years on your resume or the months to try and cover that gap up.
Yeah.
Be honest, have the exact start and end dates, but explain the gap in your resume.
Correct. Yeah.
I think there's nothing more frustrating from a recruiter's perspective is getting a resume. Yeah, it looks great, but there's a 12-month gap on it.
Yeah.
And you just think, is there a catch? Is this candidate known in the industry? Did he struggle to, or did he or her struggle to find a job in that 12-month period? And then you talk to them and you ask them why, and they explain, I had a kid, which is an obvious one, or my wife had a kid and I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. It was, something I always wanted to do. So I took 12 months off, I had money saved up.
Yeah, there's lots of different reasons.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Exactly.
I've had a candidate say to me, oh, look, my mother was really, really ill.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to look after her. So she took 12 months off to look after her mother while she was ill.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. So in that situation, put in your resume, 2016 to 2017, full-time carer for my mum, or just explain it. And ultimately, it's not adding any weight to your resume. It's purely just there from the point of view of a time-poor recruiter could dismiss your application based on that gap.
Yeah.
So just remove that.
Yeah, yeah. And the same with a lot of employers. A lot of employers will look at it and go, they weren't employed for those 12 months there. We've seen employers that we've forwarded resumes to dismiss applications for more trivial reasons than that.
Yeah. Exactly. So you're just removing, one reason, one tiny small reason that you could be rejected.
Yeah. And if you can, even if it's, look, the workforce was tough at the time and I wasn't able to find anything, that's fine. Just write it on there.
Yeah.
That's all you really need to do.
Exactly. I was made redundant and, didn't have something lined up straight away because I was happily employed for 7 years.
Correct.
So
yeah,
it doesn't have to be long-winded, but just explain the gap.
Yeah,
basically
that's right.
is all we're saying.
That's right. Yeah.
And the next one, it's one that you feel like you shouldn't have to explain, but it seems to come up more often than you would think.
Yeah.
And that's no cheesy emails.
Yeah.
If you've got an email address that you made 10, 15 years ago, and particularly if you're young, you might have made it when you were 16.
Yeah.
My wife will kill me for saying this, but she used to have an email address, jelly_babe16@hotmail.com. She has since stopped using that, but that's a good example. If you've outgrown your email address.
Yeah. I've seen some interest. We've had some good ones. Hunting and Fishing 69 was in there. Holden SSV Thunderstorm was a good one.
I once had what to them is a good one, but I suppose just consider how this could be perceived. It was Oz Trippers at something. I can't remember where it was, but if you looked at it quickly, it was AU Australia Strippers, which they just never thought of. So I suppose it's trivial and it's a bit of fun, but just making sure that your email address is professional. First name, last name.
That's right.
Nothing funky.
Yeah. The same goes for voicemails. I've had some very rude voicemails.
The old hello. You've missed. If I get a candidate that has that voicemail, I instantly really don't want to talk to them. And it's not because I'm judging them, but it's more so the thought of, well, if I submit this candidate and then a client was to call them and they get that voicemail, what's that first impression like?
And I've had much worse than that. I've had some very, very bad ones.
Yeah.
So, which are not PG, so we won't go into those. But just at a first glance, make sure it's professional in a way at least.
Exactly. So you've got your contact info. That's okay. That's all straightforward. Your email addresses are all good up the top. Then the next bit I think is a really important part to kind of set the mood for the resume.
Yeah.
And that's the statement.
Yeah.
And what would you advise in that situation, Phil, about what that statement should look like? Or is it long? Is it short? What should it look like?
I would keep it short, 2 sentences, maybe 3 tops at the absolute most. And I would just write on there something about me, where I am in my career at the moment, and essentially where I want to go.
Yeah.
One big thing that I see all the time is that is not actually specific to the job. I've had a lot of resumes that have come through and I called them. They say, yep, really keen to, find a new role in the ag industry. I've been working in a dealership for the last 10 years. I'm just keen to take that next step. And you look at their resume and says, I'm keen to find a role in the mining industry.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I haven't updated it in 3 years. Yeah. And it's outdated.
But just something simple, just say something along the lines of, this is what I've been doing for the last few years. I'm now really keen to explore something else, or I'm really keen to take that next step in my career and move into a management role.
Adding context, basically.
Exactly.
Humanizing the piece of paper.
Correct.
Basically, is what you're trying to get to.
Again, don't overcomplicate it, black and white. You don't need fancy designs. In fact, I would just literally have a black and white resume with simple headings, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You've already alluded to this one, the reverse chronological timeline.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I remember when I wrote my first resume when I was 15, 16. It goes back to the time sensitivity issue that we talked about before. A recruiter wants to, and I don't mean recruiter as in just purely a recruitment company, but recruiters internally for big businesses, that kind of thing. Anyone that's actually a hiring manager is going to look at a resume and they want to see straight away what you're doing now.
Yep.
And then work back from there. I think that's how most people's brains work now when hiring someone. They want to see where you are, all right, and then they're going to go back retrospectively to find out how you got there.
How you got there, yeah.
It's a bit twisted to how you ordinarily work people's brains, but I think that's the common thing now. And I know myself, when I see a resume that's the opposite, it really throws me out.
Yeah, same, yeah.
And I'm sure most hiring managers are the same.
A lot of hiring managers are time short. So as much as it hurts, they don't necessarily want to go through your walk of life with you on your resume. They just want to see where you are right now and how you got there.
Yeah. Listing qualifications and that kind of thing. You've probably seen this more so than most people focusing on the service department.
Yeah.
Obviously, most of those roles are technical based and have a particular qualification that's required.
Yep.
How would you go about that? What's been done well and what's been done poorly in your experience?
It depends on your qualifications. If it's 1 or 2 university degrees, or it's your Cert 3 and your Cert 4 in heavy diesel mechanics, you can definitely put that at the top if you like. If you want to put down a million other certificates that you've done, put it at the end. Look, at the end of the day, if your first job says diesel mechanic at so-and-so trucks, it's probably reasonable to assume you've got the qualification, you're fully qualified. And by the time they go through your resume and they go to the end, they then see, Cert 3 heavy vehicle mechanics acquired in 2010 or whatever it may be. My advice would be, don't put on every single, particularly people who've worked in mining in the past are culprits of this. Don't put every single little license and little certificate and little safety course you've done on there, because it gets very long.
And it detracts from what is important.
Correct.
I think any irrelevant content, whilst it may seem great, it's really just going to increase your likelihood of the important stuff getting lost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you really want to make sure you're focusing that, whoever's on the other end, you want to focus their eyes on what's important.
Yeah.
And ultimately, with the qualifications, a big thing is don't leave people guessing.
Yeah. That's
if
right.
you've got the qualification and it's relevant to the job, list
Put
it.
on there. Yeah.
There's nothing worse than when you take a gamble on someone because they haven't listed the qualification and it appears from the look of their resume that they're not going to be qualified.
Yeah.
And you take the gamble, you give them a call, and straight away they tell you, oh yeah, no, I got my qualification, X.
That's
year.
right. Yeah.
And you just think, why didn't you put it on
Yeah.
there?
It's the same with visa status, working rights. You might have just gotten permanent residency granted. You're looking to move to Australia, but it doesn't say it on your resume. It's hard to then go, all right, once you've got working rights, it's so much easier for you to be employed compared to someone who's still living overseas, working overseas, hasn't, by the looks of it, hasn't got their visa status sorted or anything like that. So just those sort of basic, that basic stuff, just make sure it's there and it's easy to read, and it's easy to see.
Yeah. And I think something else in terms of specifics that's really relevant to our industries is the brands and franchises that you've worked with, or even dealer management systems. A lot of the time, particularly if you're staying in the one location, it's probably not as important because you can assume the person on the other end is aware of that business. But especially in the current climate with businesses changing hands and changing operating names and things are always moving, really list out the franchises that you worked with there or the DMS that they operated with, because most of the time, and we see it every day, clients will specifically, or employers will specifically look for a particular franchise experience, or they'll say, they must have Pentana experience. So list it on your resume, because ultimately it might not be Pentana, but someone might look at it and go, oh, he's worked with Reynolds and Reynolds. I have Auto IT. It's not the same, but I've successfully transitioned someone before, so I'm sure I can do it again. I know where the pitfalls are, or I have used that before, so I know where the pitfalls are. And so you just, once again, being really specific to the industry. Obviously, as I said, not that big of a deal in a metro area where people are aware of other companies,
Correct.
or even in that specific regional area. But if you're relocating, you can't expect someone in Southern Victoria to understand what franchises you might have worked in Brisbane with a particular brand name. So just listing that and removing any doubt.
That's right.
Really handy. I suppose it almost goes hand in hand, tailoring your resume for that specific job.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than when it mentions, looking for it to secure a role in the mines.
Yeah.
When you're applying for a dealership.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a sore point for a lot of employers as well. So just making sure that it's very specific to that role.
Yeah. Make sure it's tailored. That's right. And look, another thing I get asked about a lot is the size of the resume. How long is it meant to be?
It's a controversial topic. And I think it's once again pushed a lot by these companies that people pay for their resumes.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion? How long do you think?
Short. Not as short as possible, to the point where you're losing information, which means you're losing value on your resume. But keep it short so that basically what I want to see is maybe a personal statement if you want to write one, and I want to see where you've worked, how long you worked there for, the specific dates. Don't say 2 years. I want 2017 to 2019 in the months. 2 years doesn't mean much.
Yeah. it almost comes across as they're hiding something.
Yeah, that's right. So company you worked for, how long you were there, the specific dates, your role there. So that's another big one. I've had a lot of resumes where they just didn't put the role down. And your general duties and responsibilities that you did there, that can be done in 4 or 5 dot points, maybe 6, depending on the role. If it's a big management role, okay, you'll probably need a couple more. And list some franchises and brands.
Yeah. I'll put you on the
that's it.
spot. Gun to the head.
Yeah.
How many pages?
3.
Because I saw a topic or a post on LinkedIn recently. It was someone who claimed they'd perfect the perfect resume.
Yeah.
And it was a one-page CV. And it sparked a debate about whether one-page CVs are adequate or if that's the future. And it was all tailored towards the whole time poor argument and all that. And don't get me wrong, the CV looked great. It was very easy to look at. Yeah. But I honestly, from a recruiter's perspective, I cannot see how you'd properly sell yourself. If you've got 20 years of experience, I don't understand how you could fit that into one page.
No. If you're still sort of at, within the first 10 years of your career, you can probably get away with 2. You put your contact details at the top and your name, personal statement, you list your jobs. Again, this depends on how many jobs you've had. If you've had a lot of contract roles, then over 10 years, you would have had 10 roles.
Yeah.
For example, whereas someone who's just started at a dealership as a car detailer, got an apprenticeship, then became a mechanic, then worked their way up to foreman, and then as a service advisor, they might still be there. So their resume will be considerably shorter. But generally speaking, I think you can get it done within 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah. And I would agree.
I don't want to say there's nothing worse, but I have seen resumes that have gone to 19, 20 pages.
Yeah. I think once you get to 5, you're starting to get in dangerous territory of, the important stuff's going to get lost.
Yeah.
And you actually just brought up a really good point that we forgot to discuss before, contract roles.
Yes.
If you are working a contract role, say it on the resume. Because otherwise the person on the other end is just going to look at it and go, 3 months there, 3 months there, 4 months there.
Yeah.
And we need to know why.
Yeah.
So
if it's a contract role, fine. That's no worries.
Yeah.
That's just what it was, Some people love contract roles because it's like little projects and that's just who they are. They need project-based work.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's the type of work they're in for whatever reason.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all there is. That's all you can get. You can, the workforce is just saying, this is what we've got. It's 4 or 5 months stints at a time and, pays the bills. So,
Exactly. I suppose the final point around specifically resumes, not just resumes, also cover letters, but spelling and grammar check.
Yeah.
check.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing worse than you're trying to sell a candidate to a client, or even just trying to sell yourself to a client, and you're trying to say that you've got really good attention to detail.
Yeah.
And there's an error in your resume.
Yeah.
I think it's the oldest, most classic example of you're really shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do that.
Yeah, yeah. Specifically when you spell your own role wrong, your own job.
Yeah.
That's a bit.
Or your employer's name.
Yeah. There's all stuff like that. And I'm sure it's not on purpose, but just go through it, double check it, get someone else to proofread it if you're not 100% sure. because it goes a long way. It's keeping it simple, black and white. Don't make a big fuss about the design or anything, and just make sure everything's spelled correctly and it's easy to read. That's all you need.
Exactly. And I suppose moving on to the next little subtopic, which once again is a little bit of a controversial one. I know there's a lot of differing opinions on this, but cover letters.
Yes.
Are you for or are you against them?
I'm generally speaking for cover letters if they're done right.
Yeah.
I get a lot of cover letters, and I'm sure so do you, and Rowan probably the same, of people who just said, right, I need a cover letter for the jobs I'm applying for. So it starts off with something along the lines of, Dear Sir / Madam, I would like to apply for the opening at your organisation. And it goes on from there. So cover letters are your opportunity to sell yourself for this specific job. So going back to the personal statement, we're saying, I would be really keen. I'm a technician. I'm really keen to get off the tools. So I would love the opportunity to have a go at this workshop manager, at a workshop manager role. Cover letter is now your opportunity to say, right, I've actually worked on these and these and these brands. They might not be the same, but they're extremely similar to what you guys have got at the moment. I've taken on a leading hand role when the current leading hand or workshop manager or whatever was away. And I think I'd really fit in well. That's your opportunity with the cover letter.
Yeah. Once again, humanising what's to come with the resume. And I think as a starting point with cover letters, it's read the job ad.
Yeah.
Does it say I need a cover letter?
Yes.
Because if it does, obviously you need one.
Yeah.
If it doesn't and it leaves it open, then my next step, I suppose from there, or my next piece of advice would be, will this add value?
Yeah.
And it will add value if you do exactly what Phil just said before. You personalize it, you make it specific to that job. It's really tailored.
Correct.
If you're just going to do the old copy and paste or attach the same cover letter that you use for every job, then it's not going to add value. It's just going to detract from it.
Yeah, it's actually making it worse because it feels as though you're just spraying and praying.
Yeah.
You're just applying for everyone, just going for whatever you can. Which, look, I can understand. You're obviously looking for a role. You're looking for a new job, but it's not great when a potential future employer is looking at it and he's like, this has got nothing to do with what this job is or what we're about or anything like that. So
exactly. So I think to summarize cover letters really simply, it's do them, but do it properly.
Yeah.
Because I maintain that if you do it properly, it's never going to hurt your application.
Correct.
There's not an employer in the world that's going to look at your cover letter and go, well, he did a tailored cover letter. I don't want them. How dare he? So just do it properly, make sure. But if you're not going to do it properly, then don't do it because it's just going to harm. If you're time sensitive, whatever, come back at it later.
No more than a page, I would say.
I think,
Don't write an essay.
No, once again, you want to make sure that it's tailored towards someone who is going to be time poor on the other end of it.
That's right. Look, I think that's probably a good place to finish up. Take home points, I think, from resumes, CVs, cover letters. Keep it short and just keep it simple a lot of the time, and make sure what's on there is adding value. I think to me is the main points to remember.
Add value, remove doubt.
Correct.
I think they're the two important points to have in the back of your mind the whole time you're putting together a resume.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on episode 5.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Adding Fuel to the Hire. If you have any questions or you'd like to hear us talk about a particular topic, why not send us an email at podcast@addingfueltothehire.com. If you like what we do and would like to support our podcast, please leave a review on your podcasting app of choice. For further information, please visit our website, addingfueltothehire.com.